Look at a green leaf, any leaf, on any tree, held up to the sun. It looks like the calmest thing in the world, but at the very center of what makes it green sits a single atom of metal. And nearly every meal you have ever eaten traces back, indirectly, to that chemistry. That same metal, in another form, burns with a white light so fierce you cannot look straight at it. On a hot magnesium fire, water can make things worse. 80 years ago, that white light became part of the chemistry of air raids that turned whole city districts into fire before morning. It is inside you right now, in every beat of your heart, in every thought crossing your mind. This metal is quietly at work, and most people will live their whole lives never learning its name. Then, in the autumn of 2021, because of what happened in one industrial region of China, the car factories of Europe came within weeks of grinding to a halt over this exact metal. I've spent a long time reading about it, and it keeps pulling the same trick on me. Every time I think I understand what it is, it turns out to be something else. So before we start, sit with 4 questions. How can one and the same metal help grow nearly every green leaf on Earth and also burn a city to the ground? Why did a metal that surrounds us in almost unlimited amounts suddenly, nearly, run out for the entire world? What do a blade of grass, your own heartbeat, and a fighter plane have in common? And why is it that something the ocean holds in endless supply became one of the weakest points in the modern world? Its name is magnesium. Try not to mix it up with manganese, a different metal entirely, though the two get confused all the time. By the end of this, a leaf, your dinner, and your own pulse are going to look different to you. Start with the leaf, because this is where the whole story begins. You already know, somewhere in the back of your mind, that plants turn sunlight into food. That is photosynthesis. It is the process that feeds almost every living thing on the planet and puts almost all of the free oxygen into the air you are breathing right now. But almost nobody stops to ask a simple question. What is the actual physical thing inside the leaf that catches a particle of sunlight and puts it to work? The answer is a molecule called chlorophyll. It is the pigment that makes plants green, and it is shaped, if you zoom all the way in, like a flat ring of atoms with a small cage at its center. Sitting inside that cage, held in place by 4 nitrogen atoms, is a single atom of metal. That atom is magnesium. Think about what that means. When a beam of sunlight strikes a leaf, it is the chlorophyll, built around that magnesium atom, that absorbs the light and hands its energy into the machinery that turns water and carbon dioxide into sugar. Take the magnesium out of the center, and chlorophyll cannot do the job. No working chlorophyll, no photosynthesis as we know it. And without that, the food chain that supports almost all visible life on Earth loses its foundation. So the green of every forest, every field of wheat, every blade of grass on Earth is the color of light bouncing off a metal you have probably never thought about once in your life. And the scale of it is almost impossible to hold in your head. Every year, the green machinery built around this one metal pulls vast quantities of carbon out of the air and turns it into living matter. Every apple, every grain of rice, every blade of grass that was ever eaten by an animal that was later eaten by something else began as sunlight caught by magnesium. It is barely an exaggeration to say that this single atom, sitting quietly in the middle of a green molecule, is the doorway through which almost all life on Earth collects its energy. There is a strange rhyme hidden in this. Your own blood runs red because of a molecule called hemoglobin, and hemoglobin is built around an atom of iron. The green blood of the plant world is built almost the same way, around an atom of magnesium instead. Iron carries the oxygen inside you. Magnesium catches the light inside them. 2 metals, 2 colors, 2 halves of the same living engine that keeps the biosphere running. So where does all this magnesium come from? And here is the first big difference between magnesium and the truly rare metals of the world. Magnesium is not exotic at all. It was forged inside ordinary massive stars, in the ferocious heat of their cores, where carbon and neon fuse into heavier elements. When those giant stars reached the end of their lives and blew themselves apart as supernovae, they seeded the galaxy with it. As star ash goes, magnesium is common. On Earth, it is the 8th most abundant element in the entire crust. It is locked into whole mountain ranges of rock. It is dissolved in every ocean on the planet, more than a gram of it in every liter of seawater, which adds up to a quantity almost too large to picture. It is in the water you drink and the soil that grows your food. For all practical purposes, there is no shortage of magnesium atoms anywhere near us. Hold on to that fact because it is going to become one of the strangest turns in this whole story. A metal that is everywhere. A metal the universe made in bulk. A metal sitting in every drop of the sea. And yet, as you will see, the modern world nearly lost its grip on it entirely. But first, the gentle green leaf has a violent twin. Because the very same atom that quietly catches sunlight to feed the planet can also do the exact opposite. It can throw light back out, all at once, in a burst so fierce that for a long time nobody could control it at all. Set fire to a ribbon of pure magnesium, and you will see something you do not forget. It does not glow orange like burning wood or sullen red like hot iron. It burns a blinding, surgical white, so bright it can leave a spot in your vision, and so hot it can reach temperatures around 3,000 degrees Celsius. It is one of the fiercest, simple fires a person can start with an everyday material. And here is what makes it dangerous in a way ordinary fire is not. You cannot put it out with water. Throw water onto burning magnesium, and the white-hot metal tears the water molecule apart, grabs the oxygen for itself, and sets free the hydrogen, which is its own explosive gas. Instead of dying, the fire flares harder and can spit molten metal in every direction. Even the carbon dioxide inside a standard fire extinguisher is not safe, because magnesium this hot can rip the oxygen out of that too. Firefighters treat burning magnesium as its own special category, to be smothered with dry powder or sand, never doused. That same untamable fire still shows up in the modern world in ways that catch people out. Firefighters know that a car with burning magnesium alloy parts, or a workshop full of magnesium shavings, is not a fire you can simply hose down. Spray water on it, and you can trigger a small explosion and throw molten metal across the room. It is one of the rare fires where the instinct every human being is born with, reach for water, is exactly the wrong move. For a long time, though, people mostly saw the beautiful side of that light. In the early decades of photography, before the electric flashbulb, a photographer would pour a little magnesium powder into a shallow tray and set it alight. It went off with a bang, a cloud of white smoke, and a flash of hard, brilliant light that could freeze a portrait in a single, searing instant. That harsh, ghostly glare in the oldest flash photographs, the one that makes Victorian faces look startled and pale, is magnesium burning. It was not without cost. Studios filled with smoke, and photographers were sometimes burned by their own flash. From there, magnesium went everywhere a bright, stubborn light is useful. Signal flares that can be seen for kilometers across open sea. Tracer rounds that draw glowing lines through the dark, so a gunner can see where the bullets are going. Star shells fired high over a battlefield to turn night briefly into a flat, shadowless day. A metal that could hold a flame almost nothing could put out was, for any army, close to too good to be true. And then, the 20th century took that idea to its darkest possible conclusion. During the Second World War, engineers built small incendiary bombs around magnesium and thermite. Each one was light, no heavier than a few bricks, and by itself was little more than a stick of white fire. But they were not dropped one at a time. They were dropped by the tens of thousands, raining down over cities built of wood and brick and tile. On their own, unremarkable. Together, they did something worse than any single high-explosive bomb ever could. They started firestorms. In Hamburg, in the summer of 1943, so many of these little fires caught at once that the flames merged into a single, towering column of fire. It pulled in air at the base with the force of a gale, feeding itself, driving temperatures high enough to melt glass and turn sheltered cellars into ovens. Tens of thousands of people died in a single series of raids. The same nightmare was repeated over Dresden and over Tokyo, where a single night of firebombing in 1945 is counted among the deadliest air raids in all of human history. The metal that helps make every green leaf work was now part of the chemistry of incendiary war, falling out of the sky in small bombs that helped turn night raids into citywide firestorms. It had taken people a surprisingly long time to even understand what this metal was. It is named after Magnesia, a district in Greece where strange minerals had been dug up since ancient times, and the same place name gave us the words magnet and manganese, which is exactly why the two metals still get muddled today. A Scottish chemist, Joseph Black, worked out in the 1750s that the substance was something distinct in its own right. Humphrey Davy, using the brand new force of electricity to pull compounds apart, showed in 1808 that a new metal was hiding inside it, and a French scientist, Antoine Bussy, finally held a clean sample of the pure metal in 1828. Generations of patient work just to isolate a thing that would one day light up photographs and burn down cities. But magnesium had a third face, one with nothing to do with light at all, because on top of everything else, it turned out to be astonishingly light in weight. And that single property was about to lift human beings clean off the ground. Weight is the enemy of flight. Every gram you carry into the air costs you fuel, costs you power, costs you range. So from the moment human beings started building machines meant to leave the ground, they became obsessed with one question. What is the lightest metal we can actually trust to build things out of? Magnesium is the answer. It is the lightest commonly used structural metal there is. A block of it weighs only about 2/3 as much as the same block of aluminum, and aluminum is already famous for being light. If you need a metal part that is strong enough to rely on and lighter than almost anything else on the shelf, a magnesium alloy is where you look. The aircraft engineers noticed it once. By the 1930s, magnesium alloys were going into engine casings, landing gear, and airframe parts. Germany committed to it so heavily that by 1938 it was producing more magnesium than the rest of the world put together. A great deal of it flying inside the aircraft of its air force. There was a grim irony waiting in that choice, because a metal that light and that flammable meant that a badly damaged aircraft could, in the worst case, burn with a fire the crew had no way to fight. It spread to everywhere lightness mattered. Racing pistons inside the car that won the Indianapolis 500 as far back as 1921. The sealed gondolas of the great stratospheric balloon expeditions of the 1930s, where crews rode magnesium alloy capsules to the edge of space. One early flight ended with the balloon exploding and its crew parachuting to safety. But in 1935, a helium balloon carried a magnesium gondola and two men to over 72,000 feet, higher than any human being had ever been at that time. Close enough to the black of space to see the curve of the Earth. Decades later, the frame of Telstar, the satellite that first bounced live television across the Atlantic in 1962, was built of magnesium alloy too. For a while, one of the single largest appetites for the metal sat in an unexpected place. The original air-cooled Volkswagen Beetle, one of the best-selling cars ever built, used magnesium alloy heavily in its engine and its gearbox, on the order of 20 kilograms of it in every car. For a couple of decades, the humble Beetle rolling off the line by the million was quietly one of the biggest consumers of magnesium on the planet, a metal from burning bombs and stratospheric balloons, hidden inside the most ordinary family car in the world, and it never stopped. The shell of the laptop you might be watching this on, the body of a good camera, the frame of a drone, the steering wheel and seat frames inside modern cars. Anywhere a designer wants strength without weight, magnesium is hiding just under the surface. But all of this raises a blunt question. If you need a great deal of a metal, where on earth do you dig it up? And magnesium has one of the strangest answers of any metal there is. For decades, one of the main places we got it was not a mine at all. It was the sea. During the Great Depression, an American industrialist named Herbert Dow, and after him his son Willard, chased an audacious idea. Seawater is full of dissolved magnesium. What if you could reach into the ocean and pull the metal straight out of the water? In 1941, on the coast at Freeport, Texas, a plant began doing exactly that, at full industrial scale. It sucked in staggering volumes of seawater, around 800 tons of it for every single ton of magnesium it produced, and used crushed oyster shells, natural gas, and electricity to draw the metal out of the brine. When the attack on Pearl Harbor threw the United States into the war, demand for magnesium exploded almost overnight, and more plants were thrown up to feed it. For a few years, the ocean itself became a mine, and a stretch of the Gulf of Mexico was quietly being turned into aircraft. And here is the quiet irony that runs underneath the whole thing. The ocean's supply of magnesium is, for any human purpose, endless. We are never going to run out of seawater. And yet, in 1998, that great American seawater operation shut its magnesium production down. Not because the sea ran dry, because somewhere else in the world, the very same metal could now be made far more cheaply. That somewhere was China. And this is where a story about a metal you can pull from the sea turns into something a great deal more uncomfortable. Let me set two facts side by side, because on their own they seem to contradict each other completely. Fact 1. Magnesium is one of the most abundant elements on the entire planet. It is in the crust, in the mountain ranges, in every ocean, in the soil, and in your own bones. You could not run out of magnesium atoms if you spent a lifetime trying. Fact 2. Today, according to United States Geological Survey figures, roughly 86% of the world's primary magnesium metal is made in one single country, China, and much of that concentrated largely in Shanxi and Shanxi. In a recent year, China produced somewhere around 950,000 tons of it, out of a world total of about 1.1 million. Everyone else on the planet, added together, makes the small remainder. How does a metal that is genuinely everywhere end up controlled, in practice, from essentially one place? The answer is not geology. It is energy and money. Most of that Chinese magnesium is made using something called the Pidgeon process, which is robust, reliable, and enormously hungry for energy, usually supplied by cheap coal. For years, China could make magnesium more cheaply than anyone else alive. So, one by one, everyone else stopped, including that seawater plant on the Texas coast. The supply of the entire world quietly funneled down into a cluster of factories in one industrial region. And then, in the autumn of 2021, that funnel very nearly slammed shut. China ran into an energy crunch. To hit power and emissions targets, the authorities ordered sharp cuts to heavy energy-guzzling industry in exactly the provinces where magnesium is made. Output dropped like a stone. And on the other side of the world, European industry did the arithmetic and quietly began to panic. Because here is the part almost nobody outside the trade understood. Europe made essentially none of its own magnesium. It depended on China for very nearly all of it. And magnesium is the ingredient that turns aluminum into the strong, light alloys that modern cars are built from. In gearbox housings, in structural parts, in the bodies that hold everything together. No magnesium, no alloy, no parts. Industry groups put out warnings in unusually plain language, saying that within a matter of weeks the car plants of Europe could be forced to stop. For a few tense weeks, trade journals wrote about this obscure gray metal the way they normally write about oil. Buyers scrambled to lock down whatever tonnage they could find. Analysts openly discussed the possibility that a shortage of one dull industrial metal from one industrial region most Europeans could not have found on a map might finish the job that a global pandemic and a semiconductor shortage had already half done and freeze the assembly lines of an entire continent. And it was worse than a normal shortage because of a quirk in the metal itself. You cannot simply stockpile your way to safety. Magnesium can be stored, but it is not as simple to keep in reserve as many bulk metals, especially in fine forms or large industrial volumes. It oxidizes, and under the wrong conditions, it can become a serious fire hazard. So there were no vast national reserves to fall back on. The world had been running this everywhere metal on something close to just-in-time delivery from a single country with almost nothing held in reserve. You can read the fear in the price. For years, magnesium had been a cheap, boring industrial metal, a couple of $1,000s a ton, the kind of thing no one outside the business ever thought about. During that autumn crunch, European prices spiked violently, at the worst climbing toward $9,000 or $10,000 a ton before the immediate emergency eased and they fell back down. According to United States Geological Survey figures, the yearly average slid from around $5,000 a ton in the crisis years back toward $2,500 by 2025 as Chinese output recovered and demand cooled. The panic passed. The dependence did not. In 2023, fresh cuts in the very same province set off the very same worried scramble all over again. And the United States, for its part, still imports well over 75% of the magnesium it uses. This is why magnesium now sits on the critical raw material lists of both the European Union and the United States. Those are sober government documents that try to name the short list of materials a modern economy simply cannot run without, and cannot easily secure at scale if something goes wrong. A metal you can scoop out of the sea, a metal locked into every mountain range, is officially logged as a strategic weakness, purely because almost all of the actual making of it happens in one place. And you might ask the obvious question. If the metal is so valuable and so exposed, why not simply recycle our way out of the trap? Some magnesium is recovered and reused, especially the clean scrap from making alloys. But a great deal of what the world uses never comes back. It is blended into aluminum in small amounts and scattered across billions of cans and car parts, far too diluted to easily reclaim as pure magnesium. Some of it, quite literally, was set on fire and gone. The everywhere metal has a quiet talent for slipping through our fingers. If you have stayed with me this far, do me a small favor. Look around the room and find the magnesium near you. The aluminum drink can, which is really an alloy holding a little magnesium. The laptop shell. The car sitting out in the driveway. Tell me in the comments what you spotted. I read them. So that is magnesium seen from the outside. The metal that supports the food chain, that became part of incendiary war, that lifts our machines into the sky, and that quietly became a choke point for entire industries from one industrial region. But while factory managers were staring at supply charts and praying for the mines to reopen, the very same metal was doing something far more intimate. It was keeping every one of those people alive from the inside. There are roughly 25 grams of magnesium inside your body at this moment. Most of it is built into your bones. The rest is spread through your cells, hard at work, and the work it does is not optional. Magnesium takes part in the action of more than 300 different enzymes, the microscopic machines that run the chemistry of being alive. It is directly involved in how your body handles energy itself. The molecule that carries usable energy inside every cell, called adenosine triphosphate, actually does its job bound together with magnesium. Without it, the body's basic energy currency does not spend the way it should. Magnesium is there when your cells copy their deoxyribonucleic acid and build new proteins. It helps steady the electrical signals that fire along your nerves and make your muscles contract. And that includes the single most important muscle you own. Every steady beat of your heart depends, in part, on magnesium quietly doing its job in the background. When people run badly short of it, one of the things that can go wrong is the rhythm of the heart itself, along with cramps, twitches, and a creeping fatigue. Some people do not get enough, especially with certain diets, medical conditions, or medications. You have almost certainly met magnesium in a medicine cabinet without ever realizing it. Milk of magnesia, that chalky white remedy for an upset stomach, is a simple magnesium compound. Epsom salts, the crystals traditionally tipped into a hot bath for aching muscles, are magnesium sulfate, and they carry a small story of their own. They take their name from the town of Epsom in England, where, by the old account, a farmer in the early 1600s noticed that his cattle refused to drink from a bitter local spring. That bitterness was dissolved magnesium, and the salts drawn from that water went on to become a household remedy for centuries. Many common antacids lean on the same metal as well. The same element that burns white hot inside a bomb sits, in a gentler form, on the shelf of every pharmacy in the world. And there is one last hidden role, the kind of quiet, load-bearing job this metal seems to specialize in. Around 1900, a French chemist named Victor Grignard discovered that magnesium could be used to snap together new carbon-based molecules, joining pieces that were otherwise very hard to join. That discovery, now called the Grignard reaction, became one of the fundamental tools of modern chemistry. It won him a share of the Nobel Prize in 1912. And more than 100 years later it still sits behind the making of many medicines, fragrances, materials, and research molecules. Magnesium is not printed on the label of your prescription, but it may sit somewhere in the synthetic route behind medicines and materials you use. And there is a neat little circle hiding in your own diet. Where does the magnesium your heart and nerves depend on actually come from? Mostly from food. From nuts and seeds, from whole grains, from beans, and above all from dark leafy greens, spinach, kale, chard. And the reason those greens are so rich in it is that they are packed with chlorophyll, the very molecule built around a magnesium atom. When you eat a plate of greens, you are quite literally eating the green metal straight out of the leaf and putting it to work inside your own cells. In the last few years, magnesium has become one of the most talked about supplements in the world, sold for sleep, for stress, for tired muscles. And while the marketing runs well ahead of the hard evidence, the fact underneath it is real. A body running low on this metal does not work the way it should. So look at what this one ordinary metal actually is. It sits at the center of the leaf, catching the sunlight that feeds the entire living world. It sits inside your cells, unlocking the energy behind every heartbeat and every thought. And it sits inside a bomb casing, burning white hot enough to level a city street. The same element, the same 12 protons in the nucleus, life and fire out of one single kind of atom. So what happens to magnesium now? The pressure on it is only rising. The entire direction of the modern world is toward lighter cars, longer-range electric vehicles, lighter aircraft, lighter everything. And lightness is exactly what magnesium is for. Demand is not going to fade, but the hard truth that 2021 exposed has not faded either. The world still leans on a small cluster of factories in one country for a metal that is, physically, lying all around us. Governments in Europe and North America now talk about rebuilding their own supply, some of them even about pulling magnesium from seawater once again, the way that Texas plant did 80 years ago. Whether they truly follow through is a different question. Here is the thought I keep circling back to. Somewhere outside your window right now, in a leaf you are not even looking at, an atom of magnesium is catching a particle of sunlight and beginning to turn it into food. And an atom exactly like it, utterly indistinguishable, once sat inside a bomb and helped burn a city to the ground. Same metal, same physics, two opposite ends of what a single element is capable of. That is the real lesson of magnesium, and it runs deeper than chemistry. The elements are not good, and they are not evil. They simply have properties written into them by the physics of the atom, and it is we who decide whether to grow something with them or burn something down. Magnesium helps catch the light either way. What it lights up is on us. It grows the leaf. It beats in the heart. It flies the plane. It fed the fires of war, and it quietly ties the whole modern world to one industrial region on the far side of the planet. All of that out of an atom so common that you are breathing past millions of them in the plants around you without a second thought. Thanks for staying with me. If this changed the way you see something as ordinary as a green leaf, hit like, and tell me in one word what stayed with you most. Say, light energy absorbing factor, for the atom that catches the sun and feeds the world. Say fire, for the white flame that water cannot kill. Say sky, for the metal light enough to fly. Say China, for the everywhere metal the whole world nearly lost. Or say heart, for the magnesium beating inside you right now. Pick one word and drop it below. Subscribe because the next element has just as many secrets hidden inside it. See you then.